This isn't one of my normal videos, but I've been thinking a lot about Pokemon lately. And there's plenty of reason why. New Pokemon games should be coming out at some point next year. We've been in a really bad spot, but I haven't been necessarily thinking about the mainline Pokemon games. I've been thinking about all the weird spin-offs that they've had over the years. Like, they've had things like a Pokemon Park, the digital versions of the trading card games, puzzle games, and there's even some really popular ones like Mystery Dungeon and the Ranger series, and some less popular ones like Pokemon Rumble. But I always felt these Pokemon spin-off games have been incredibly weird. And some have been close to traditional Pokemon games like Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, or similar to games like either Pokemon Snap, which we got a sequel for a couple years ago now, and maybe even like a Pokemon Stadium. Some games, not necessarily Snap, but like some games similar to the traditional Pokemon formula. And you could even consider Pokemon Legends of Arceus being somewhat of a spin-off, because it doesn't follow the traditional Pokemon, formula. You don't necessarily have to fight trainers. You don't necessarily have to fight gyms. You just run around and collect Pokemon in clear areas and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily a traditional Pokemon game, though. I think it technically is classified under that, because, the battle mechanics are the same. It's a whole thing. But even, they've been doing these spin-offs since the original Game Boy. One of the first spin-offs I can remember seeing was the original Pokemon trading card game on the Game Boy. And I never personally played it that much. I own it on my 3DS when it came to Virtual Console, but I played it a little bit. It's a weird game, and most of these games are incredibly weird. Hey You Pikachu, famously a terrible game. And it used the N64's weird I think this is the only game it ever was used for, Pikachu microphone for you to communicate with Pikachu and participate in a variety of mini games at different locations. It's a very confusing game. It almost kind of reminds me of, if you ever remember that game on Dreamcast, Seaman, where it was, the main thing was this weird fish creature thing you watch evolve over time, and it was voiced by Leonard Nimoy for some reason. So it gives me that kind of vibe. It's just a very strange idea. And one of the stranger games that released that's considered a Pokemon spinoff, Pokemon Channel. It was a very similar idea to Hey You Pikachu, but it was on the GameCube. It was basically you and a virtual pet watches TV, that pet being Pikachu, and uses the GameCube clock to unlock new programs, which is a cool idea, I guess, but it makes more sense as a mobile app nowadays. But granted, this was 2005, so I highly doubt they would have developed this for a Nokia 3310. But it's still such a strange concept. And there's been some really good ones. I've not personally liked these games, but I know so many people love the Mystery Dungeon games. The Mystery Dungeon games have some very popular games in them, like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue DX. I remember sitting in class, we were doing, this was in my communications class, and we had to do a presentation of something that we love. And somebody chose to do almost a presentation on Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky. I believe that's the one from the Sinnoh region. And it was bizarre, because this person clearly had such a great passion for this franchise and this specific series of games, and specifically Explorers of Sky. And I was that I never heard somebody say their favorite Pokemon game would be one of the side games or Mystery Dungeon or anything like that. But apparently it's a very large demographic, to the point where that they still make Mystery Dungeon games. A franchise that I had, this is the only one of the few spin-off games that I actually owned for Pokemon, was I had Pokemon Ranger, the very first Pokemon Ranger game, and it was fucking crazy. Like, I absolutely despise having to catch Pokemon by spinning my stylus on the screen. It was ridiculous. I felt like an idiot. But the story was insane. I saw this video by Jade Animations going through her experience. I highly recommend you watch it. It is just an excellent representation of how insane that franchise is. And I think one of the more notable ones, something a spinoff that a lot of people, at least for a while, had talked about, was Pokemon Rumble U. And like the whole Pokemon Rumble franchise is crazy. It had, some of you might not even know this, but that franchise has 5 games in it. 5 games for Pokemon motherfucking Rumble. It starts with Pokemon Rumble Blast, Pokemon Rumble U, Pokemon Rumble World, and Pokemon Rumble Rush. I believe Rush is a mobile game, but this entire series is horrible. It's like their weird attempt at I know the first couple weren't like this, but I know modern interpretations of this Rumble franchise is like more of like a Dota League experience. But like Rumble U was like this awful microtransaction riddled mess, and it's truly fucking crazy. Though they, in recent years, they have slowed down tremendously in terms of what they do for spin-off games. You barely see the Mystery Dungeon franchise anymore. We occasionally get Detective Pikachu games, and I think one of the larger side games we see that hasn't gotten a new game in a while, but is still very popular, is Pokemon Tournament, which is a 2D fighting game. It's a very interesting game. I don't personally like it. I'm just not a big fan of those more Tekken, like Street Fighter style fighting games. I love me Smash Brothers, and that's about where my fighting game, love really stops and ends. But one of my favorite side things for the Pokemon franchise was Pokédex 3D. It was one of my favorite applications on my 3DS. I don't remember how I got it. I don't remember when I downloaded it. I just remember one day opening up my 3DS and like going through all my extra apps because we were on a road trip. I only had like 2 games on me and I was really bored. So I was like, let's go see what all the other applications on my 3DS are. And one of them was Pokédex 3D, specifically for Gen 5. And it was so cool seeing all of these like 3D models of all these Pokemon in detailed descriptions and, hearing the sounds. It was genuinely such a cool application that they don't really have anymore. They don't really make like these, infographic, these, modern interpretations of Pokédexes in like a consumer form. I guess I'm lost for words on how to effectively describe these the Pokédex 3D application, but like I would love to see another interactable Pokédex like this. I know they've had in the past where you could buy like a toy Pokédex and it could play like some of the sounds of Pokemon, but like I would love to see a real product that is just a Pokédex that is very, like you can interface with it, you can interact with it on a very cool degree. And it might be able to pair with something like Pokemon Go, and you can get a bunch of details about the Pokemon you're looking at. And it's just something like that I think would be super interesting. And I remember as a kid, I had this the Kanto Pokédex from the show, and it was like a calculator or some shit. But it was so cool. It was my favorite toy at my aunt's house in Alaska, and I didn't get to take it home with me when we left because I really wanted it, but at this point, this toy was probably from the 90s or the early 2000s, and I could not find it anywhere. And I could probably go on eBay and find one, but I'm unlikely to find it at a reasonable price. Some of the more recent Pokemon spin-off games are like Pokemon Unite, Pokemon Cafe Remix, and probably more notably as of late, Pokemon Sleep, which is like a sleep tracking app made by Pokemon, and you catch Pokemon the better you sleep, and then like they give you like a rating at the end of the night when you wake up. It is truly a very strange thing for Pokemon to do. I don't know who this is for. Because I don't know many children who want to track their sleep, or any children that sleep good enough to catch like a legendary Pokemon. Like, it's truly a bizarre app that the Pokemon company decided, you know what, we need to invest our resources in this. There's so many weird and wacky Pokemon spin-off games. I could probably spend literally 6 different videos discussing these. And let me know down below, what's your favorite Pokemon spin-off game? I mentioned that mine is Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness a few times. I would love to hear what's yours down below. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to become a member. We have 2 tiers. And don't forget, most of all, have a wonderful day. Deuces.